What's up, everybody? Big Cop Diesel coming at you, and I wanted to talk about a story that came out of East Point over in Detroit about a McDonald's worker who stabbed and killed her manager. And apparently, this could have gotten a lot worse had it not been for the actions of a licensed concealed carrier. Um, the police basically said that he's a hero and that if it weren't for him, this could have been a lot worse. So, background is there was a worker who apparently was some type of a disciplinary problem. She had been sent home on several occasions before the day in question for whatever, we don't know. But on this particular day, she was sent home by the manager, and then at some point came back to the store and proceeded to stab the manager. She ultimately passed away, I believe, at the hospital, not on the scene. But this could have got a lot worse. And the reason why it didn't get any worse is because you had that concealed carrier who happened to be at the restaurant. And I'm not sure if he was in the drive-thru or if he was inside the store. But when he noticed that this deadly force assault was occurring, he fired his handgun in the air to basically probably try to get the girl's attention, and then held her at gunpoint until the police arrived. So this concealed carrier obviously had enough presence of mind to take action and to stop this assault. When it comes to these types of deadly force assaults, the bad guy, the criminal, the girl, basically has to have, there's three sides to a triangle, a violence triangle, if you will, and that's, you got to have the ability, the intent, and the opportunity. And this young lady had all three. You know, she also has released the girl, the perp, if you will, had released a rant on social media prior to this, and I can't remember if the rant was like the same day of, like before she went back to the store, or if it was a couple days prior, but at some point she did release a rant complaining about the manager, claiming the manager doesn't know how to talk to people, this kind of stuff. And so this is what precipitated it, and this is what the Department of Homeland Security identifies as the pathway to violence, right? And when we're talking about the pathway to violence, we're talking about what are the actual steps that someone takes before they finally act. There has to be a decision. The person has had to decide that, hey, I am going to remedy this situation. I'm going to answer this situation with violence. And then they begin to plan. Now, just the same as, and this girl is obviously not a mass shooter or a mass killer, but when you're looking at mass shooters, the steps are pretty much the same in some respects. You know, she made a decision. She planned this out, whether it was a couple hours, a couple days, at most a couple days, but she at some point decided that she was going to do this. And these decisions usually come from the person feeling that they've been wronged in some way. That could be professionally, romantically, academically. In this case, the young lady feels that she was wronged professionally on the job for some reason, and made the decision that she was going to act out on this, and we see what happened. So let's talk about the concealed carrier. We don't know anything about him. We know that it's a male. We don't know, again, whether he was at the drive-thru or if he was inside the store. But his actions absolutely prevented, more death, more injury. And it's just another example of legally armed people being in the right place at the right time, but most importantly, being willing to act. You have to be willing to act. You know, you can carry a firearm or pepper spray or whatever, but if you're not willing to act, it doesn't matter. Now, he very well could have said to himself, as a civilian, we don't have a duty to respond as opposed to a law enforcement officer. Law enforcement officer, whether they're on the clock or not, they are legally bound and they have a duty to respond to any crime that they witness. As civilians, we do not have a duty to respond. So that guy could have very well said, you know what, not my problem, and could have went on his day, but he didn't. He saw that an innocent woman uh, was being stabbed, and he took action. Now, when we talk about the use of force continuum, and that is the amount of force that you can use in response to an attack, deadly force or otherwise, um, one caveat there is that he fired his handgun in the air. And nowhere in the use of force do we talk about that. Do we allow that? Do we recommend that? And this all worked out. At most it's a civil infraction. Most cities have a local ordinance that says you cannot discharge a firearm within city limits. Um, so I don't imagine there'll be anything. The police are happy that he was there and that he took action. So I can't imagine they're going to turn around and give him a ticket, a fine for firing his firearm in the city. However, we don't like to talk about, or we don't preach, we being firearms instructors and use of force professionals, talking about firing in the air, because it's just as dangerous firing your firearm in the air on any day of the week, just like it is on New Year's Eve, right? We preach don't do that, because that bullet's got to come down somewhere, right? But other than that, there's no problem with what happened, and kudos to that guy. I'm glad that he was there, and I'm glad that he took action. And this is one of those conversations you might want to have with somebody that you know who is anti-gun. This is, again, yet another example of someone who was there and was able to take action. Could you imagine if he hadn't been there, or was just unwilling to take action, and somebody called 911, how long it might have taken for first responders to arrive? And I don't care if it was 2 minutes or whatever. 2 minutes is a long time when somebody's sticking something sharp into you repeatedly. So, and this is not a knock on first responders. That's just the way it is. It takes them time to get from point A to point B. Sometimes people get lucky, and the police officer might be the next street over, eating lunch, or they might just happen to be in the parking lot of the business when there's a call. But 9 times out of 10, they're out on road patrol somewhere, and they have to, you have to make the call. Dispatcher has to radio out to the police, and then they have to respond. And time is of the essence. Seconds matter when your life is on the line, right? So unless we can carry around a police officer on our back, it's just not realistic. So again, kudos to this guy. Again, this might be a good discussion point with anybody who is anti-gun. And the thing is remember, guys, and you approach it however you want when you're talking to friends, family, coworkers. I don't preach, right? I just make a statement, and then I just ask questions. And my question always is, well, what would you do? Or what do you think the answer is? Is deadly force response always the answer to an assault? No, not always. But it evens the playing field, right? A knife is a deadly force weapon. And the only way you respond to a deadly force assault with a deadly force weapon is in kind, right? You respond with deadly force because you have to even the playing field. So that's all I got on this, guys. Let me know your thoughts. Drop your comments below. And if you haven't already, make sure you like and share. All right, everybody. In the meantime, carry your firearm everywhere you're legally allowed to. Cobb Diesel out.